The first mistake that I see rookies making over and over again is freestyling it. You do not want to have the improper ratios of ingredients when you're making a Ninja Creami. Even experienced cooks might feel like very confident making a Ninja Creami by just throwing stuff into the pint. If you're a beginner, I'm begging you to just use a tried and true recipe off of the Ninja Creami cookbook or one of my recipes from one of my videos. I have a ton of one ingredient Ninja Creami recipes right here that you can watch next. But this is really important because if you don't do the right recipe the first time you make your Ninja Creami after waiting like 2 days to have ice cream, you will be sorely disappointed if it doesn't work out, and you will probably hate your machine. And it's a lot of work to put into something if you don't get a great reward from it. So this is why I'm trying to teach you how to be confident using your Ninja Creami by avoiding doing these mistakes. Second, this kind of goes with number one, but it's using too much heavy cream. Now, you might think that that's a preposterous thing to say when you're making ice cream, but hear me out. If you use improper ratios of something that has too much fat, too much sugar, too little fat, or too little sugar, then your ice cream can turn out kind of weird. If you use too much heavy cream in your Ninja Creami recipes, the blades are moving so quickly that sometimes you can be left with what feels like a very oily, greasy texture to your finished product. And that's because heavy cream, when whipped a lot, turns into butter. We don't want butter in our Ninja Creami, so don't use too much heavy cream in your recipes. You'll want to make sure to mix that with a little bit of milk or half and half or other ingredients to make sure that you have a really nice smooth finish to your Ninja Creamis. The next mistake is inadequate freezing time. If you don't freeze your Ninja Creami enough, it needs to be like completely frozen in the middle, then it won't process correctly and you could get some varying results. You need to make sure that your Ninja Creami pints are frozen completely flat for at least 24 hours before you process. To make sure you're not overfilling your Ninja Creami containers, you don't want to go past the max line on your specific Ninja Creami pints. Otherwise, your pints will overflow once frozen because obviously frozen liquids expand and it might not process correctly, or you can even damage your machine. So don't overfill your pints. The next mistake is something I see time and time again, and it leaves people really frustrated, and that's skipping the respin option. When you initially spin your Ninja Creami on any of the settings, you'll find that it's probably a little powdery, and the machine is not meant to give you perfect results on the first spin every single time. That's why there's a respin option on there very prominently. You'll want to make sure to respin your creamies at least once or twice with a little bit of added liquid to them to give them that really nice creamy or scoopable texture. Not doing so will just make it really powdery and you won't like it. So make sure that you respin your creamies. Don't get discouraged on that first try when it comes out and it's not absolutely perfect. Just respin it. Next, something that might be a little bit annoying for your creamies is just using incompatible ingredients. Using ingredients that don't freeze well, like certain alcohols or too much fat or cream, like I talked about before, can alter the texture of your Ninja Creamis significantly. You do have to experiment a little bit, but like I said, try and use tried and true recipes at first so then you can kind of get the hang of using your machine so then you don't lose confidence and then it just sits in the back of your pantry for months and months. If you want to experiment and make your own creations, that's perfectly fine and awesome, but just know that there will be some trial and error. I've had plenty of fails and missteps, but it's okay. Just keep trying and you'll figure out your perfect recipe. The next mistake I see sometimes is not scraping down the sides of your pint. Now, when you process your pint, like I said before, the first time it can come out a little bit powdery. And if that's the case, then before you respin, then you'll want to push down the sides of your Ninja Creami so then you get all those edges down and mixed in. The Ninja Creami blade goes right almost to the sides of the container. Obviously, it doesn't touch the container, otherwise you'd have little plastic shards in your Ninja Creami, which is not good. So it doesn't quite get everything on the sides. That's why when you respin, you'll just want to use a little spatula or spoon and make sure that you just scrape the sides down and push them down to incorporate everything. The next mistake is running your machine too long or over-processing your pipe. There are some times when your mixture just still does not look good after a couple respins, and so people will just keep processing. And if you do that, that's fine. But one, you might overwork and overheat your machine. And two, your creamy is probably melting and your results are going to just get worse and worse like as time goes on. If your creamy still isn't working very well after like 3 respins, then I suggest maybe taking a little break or maybe analyzing the recipe and seeing if there was an issue with the recipe first, because you don't want to overheat and break your machine just for the sake of 1 pint. The next mistake is something I see a lot, and that this is something that I think is a fatal flaw in just the device itself, is not cleaning your Ninja Creami properly. So the Ninja Creami has this lid that you put onto the little base thingy right here, and then there's a bar that runs through the machine that pushes the blade down into the pint to process it. The thing about this is that there's no way to clean inside of the lid, and so like the bar is going up and down, taking food with it since it is technically touching your food. And if you do not clean this properly, it starts to smell like moldy milk. It's really gross. So make sure that you're cleaning your Ninja Creami parts consistently, quickly. Make sure you rinse this out with hot water like immediately after use. And I also have another video here that you can watch to show you how I clean my Ninja Creami. But seriously, it's like the worst thing about the Creami is that it's kind of a pain to clean. The next mistake I see a lot is not incorporating your ingredients completely before freezing. You need to make sure that all of your ingredients are mixed together very well so they're not just layered in your pint like milk, cream, toppings. Like everything has to be mixed together before you freeze and process it, because otherwise you're just gonna have like layers of stuff that then just get frozen and then processed in that way. It's not going to be like super creamy and delicious if you don't mix it all the way. So make sure that you blend your ingredients completely and you incorporate air into the recipe before you freeze them for best results. On my Ninja Creami, there are 4 settings. There's ice cream, sorbet, light, and milkshake. There's also another button for mix-ins, which you do after the fact. All of these settings are pre-programmed in order to spin the Creami correctly based on the density and the texture of the final product. So ice creams are going to have high fat, high sugar, and they are going to be a lot creamier than say a sorbet. If you use the sorbet setting, that is for fruits with a lot of water and sugar. It's more of an icy consistency. It's different than using ice cream, which has dairy and fat and milk. The light ice cream setting is for recipes that use milk alternatives, a little bit more water, such as like almond milk or oat milk, and less sugar or sugar alternatives. Sugar alternatives freeze differently than regular cane sugar, so you're going to want to use the light ice cream setting. That will make sure that it processes correctly and you get really good results. This is something that I've seen a lot of recently, and it's not dissolving your sugar or cream cheese into your base mixture before freezing. I know I talked about incorporating other ingredients into the base, but this one is specifically dissolving sugar. If you have a pint and you just add a bunch of half and half or chocolate milk or whatever, and you add additional sugar, but you don't dissolve it completely, the end result is going to be a little gritty and it's not going to be very creamy. If you use added sugar, sweeteners, or cream cheese in your creamy recipe, then you're going to need to dissolve it in a little bit of hot water or hot milk to make sure it turns into liquid before freezing. You'll then want to blend these things using an immersion blender or just whisking it in really well to ensure that everything is really smooth before freezing to avoid clumpy or gritty results. Next mistake is not freezing your pints flat. I know sometimes it might be hard to find room in your freezer, but once you have a pint and you fill it with ingredients, you don't want to freeze it at an angle, so then the blade will get off kilter when it comes down to press down and start processing your pint. So make sure that this is nice and flat, so when the blade comes down, it has a nice flat surface to start grinding and blending, and that will be the best way to maintain your Ninja Creami, your investment, and make sure it doesn't break. The next mistake is adding mix-ins or inclusions into your ice cream base before freezing. You don't want to do this unless you want that inclusion to be completely like obliterated and blended into your final creamy at the very end. If you want to add cookies or inclusions or candy or whatever it is that you want to add, first you need to freeze, then process your Ninja Creami, make it into like ice cream first, and then you'll add the inclusions after that, and then use the mix-in setting to then mix those into your Creami. Not only is that going to give you good like chunky results of like with pieces of whatever you want inside of the ice cream instead of it being completely blended in, but it will also like save your machine, because if you have really hard clumps of anything, especially like caramel or peanut butter or something like that in your base, when it processes down, it could be too hard and it could definitely damage your machine. I hope you enjoyed these Ninja Creami tips, and I hope it helps you avoid any disasters or failures with the Ninja Creami. I want you to have confidence using it and have fun using it. If you like this video, make sure you watch this Ninja Creami playlist next. It will help you with a lot more Ninja Creami tips, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.